Hey, what is up, guys? It is Games GX here, and we are going to be doing a bit more of the sit-down series where we just go card by card with Branded and get really granular with it, because this was something I always meant to do, but I just got recently inspired by my boy Prophecy Wiz. Go check it out. He had a similar video talking about Dominus Purge, but this time I'm going to talk about a card I was very much wrong about in Branded Despia that I normally, if you have been following the channel for a while now, you know that I have not been running the card Branded in White. Now, what does Branded in White do? Why have we not been running it, and why should you run it? So, Branded in White is a normal spell card that you can, that's obviously highly searchable by your normal means. Any way that you can get to Branded Fusion, you can get to Branded in White. However, Branded in White is akin to a Miracle Fusion instead of a thing like Branded Fusion. So what I mean by this is that Branded in White allows you to fusion summon a level 8 or higher fusion monster from using monsters on your field or hand by banishing them. However, you can also use monsters in your graveyard if you're using a Fallen of Albaz. Overall, you also need to include a dragon monster in this equation somewhere, but you're usually going to fulfill this with the Fallen of Albaz. You typically try to use this with a Fallen of Albaz in graveyard, whether it is a Bestial Luber or Shrouded Dragon or the actual boy Albaz himself, so that you are able to use your graveyard resources and have a really powerful option in order to have a great top deck and also a great search piece to increase your board strength. So that is kind of why Branded in White, what Branded in White does. Now, why have people not been running Branded in White? I think overall it's like the same equation as in Branded Banishment. It's a very similar card overall, because both cards are cards that you need other cards to make them live, essentially. Like Branded Banishment, you cannot do a whole lot if you have no other cards in the graveyard. If you haven't already like resolved a Branded Fusion or at least resolved a Cartesia, this card's not doing anything. And similar with Branded in White, where if you haven't resolved and put monsters in the graveyard, including a Fallen of Albaz, this thing is pretty dead. Now, yes, sometimes it's gonna unbreak your hands, maybe if you could just hard use it with the monsters on field and graveyard, but that's not the intended use. You want to go plus with this card by going 1-for-1 by using monsters in your graveyard. So that's kind of the reason why we haven't been using it, because at the end of the day, it's not a one card extender. It's more or less like a 3-card combo kind of card. It's very much good on top of certain boards. However, it's also, people have acknowledged in the past this card is also a great top deck, which Branded doesn't have the most. It depends, if you top deck Thrust, it can be pretty bad, but if you top deck Brand Fusion, you're just in the game. And this card being a great top deck is very important and relevant in a format with so many hand traps currently, with Snake Eye and Yugioh both respectively running upwards of 15 to 20 hand traps between the main and side deck minimum. So these, having options in order to use that graveyard that is going to fill up no matter what. You are going to, on average, see 2 hand traps a game against these decks. So a lot of your cards are going to be in the graveyard, and a lot of your combos aren't going to be full comboing. And you're going to have to go tit for tat with your opponent in a simplified game state a lot of the time. And this card is incredible in a simplified game state, because a lot of the time you'll already have the Albazes already loaded up. You'll have the Shrouded Dragons already loaded up, and you'll have maybe even the Bestial Luber or like an Albaz the Ashen in the graveyard already just from your normal comboing, and this card is great in that situation too, which makes it one of the more useful cards that we can search late game, because a lot of the time, even searching Branded Fusion, like let's just say we don't have a great end, like we've already used our Albions and Lubellions, well, this thing's going to be there, and on top of the Branded and Reds, this thing will be there for you to be able to still extend and use those graveyard resources you will have, because we all know that Branded Despia does not banish all too much. You are going to have a loaded up graveyard by turn 2 or your 3rd turn, essentially. So I would say that this card is actually way more useful, and I would argue I was wrong about this card, and I'm willing to admit when I was wrong. I think it's important to do that, which someone acknowledged in Prophecy Wiz's video. I think it's very much something that if I was wrong on something in the past, where I have said to people on my stream, hey, this card's kind of mid. It's very bricky. However, I want to say, after testing on Master Duel, that was kind of my catalyst for this card. I started running this on Master Duel because on Master Duel we have only one branded fusion. So a lot of the time you're looking for other options. You only have 2 Aluber and 1 opening too, which makes it very tight in terms of your options to 1 card combo. So this card just being able to add another fusion to that arsenal is pretty good. So just in case you already have your branded fusion on rotation, it's pretty good. And I saw that in Master Duel. A lot of the time I would still full combo. You know, you have the Mirror Jade plus Grand Guignol under Branded Lost with Branded in red with Albaz and Cartesia in graveyard. That's the typical end board for Branded right now because it plays around Droplet and it lets you Gimmick Lock under Lost and have a Mercurier in hand with a live Mirror Jade and live Guignol and live Quem, which is really good. So I'd say that that has been the standard end board, and our end boards haven't really been going past that overall, and this gets us past that. This allows us to do that same combo, and a lot of the time you will either hard open this or have something like a Spring Ends Kit. You know, a lot of the time you will be in a situation where you can search a red, you have a red, and the only other good card to set is a Branded in red. So off of Albion the Branded Dragon in the end phase, you know, that's why I think Brand Banishment is great to be able to set off of this, but I think equally as much Branded in white has the same use case because you can search it instead of Branded in red and then use Branded in red in the end phase to be set off of Albion the Branded Dragon. This card is really good into some stuff like Runic Stun or just any back row deck, because obviously right now in Branded a lot of us are running a lot of Dark Dragons, including Albion the Shrouded Dragon. You know, Albion the Shrouded Dragon is a card that has become completely standard in our deck to be ran at 3 copies. So with that being a Dark Dragon, on top of the fact it is an Albaz in the graveyard, that is huge for something like Branded and white. You know, you also have things like Bestial Aluber, which is very good. It also counts as a branded card in the a Fallen of Albaz in the graveyard, which you can send off of Bestial Saronir, which you can send off of any branded fusion or Guignol, which makes it very easy to be able to turn this on and get an Albaz in the graveyard. I think it's always been the principle of a branded player to keep at least 1 or 2 Albazes in the graveyard. I remember just chilling with Nightfall. Shout out to Nightfall. We love Nightfall. Branded GOAT, you know. He a lot of the time what I saw him do is he would always keep an Albaz in the graveyard and then send another Albaz off of his Quem in the end phase so that he has 2 in rotation, 1 for using it with Branded in red and then the second for like a Rinbrum or something else. I think it's very imperative to have multiple Albazes in rotation, whether it's in your graveyard or in your hand, in order to be able to fully use all your combo options. Going into Brand Red's very important with like Rinbrum or something like that, but I think overall this card lends itself to Branded in white since it's 3 copies of Fallen of Albaz on top of your normal Fallen of Albaz. And then of course we have to talk about the targets you're going to be making, because it's level 8 or higher, so that makes it so you can't make anything too spicy. However, what I'd say is you can make stuff even better. You can obviously make things like Albion the Branded Dragon, you can make Titaniclad to be able to attack over big bodies, but I think most importantly you can make things like Borreload Furious Dragon, which requires 2 Dark Dragons. So if you're already banishing out an Albaz in order to fill up its graveyard requirements, you already have half of Borreload Furious Dragon, and you just need the other Shrouded Dragon, which, like I said, a lot of the time they just go into your graveyard through cycling, through being used as a resource and drawing and stuff like that. That's why I think it being standard at 3 really lends to this card being really broken right now, because you're always putting Albaz in the graveyard, you're having multiple Albazes in rotation, and this just needs Shrouded Dragon in the graveyard. You can use this plus 2 Shrouded Dragons to make a Lubellion if you want, which is also something that you typically end up making off of this thing, is the Lubellion the Searing Dragon, because it's very easy since you just banish the monsters, so this thing can spin back the banished monsters. But I think overall Borreload Furious Dragon is kind of what you like to make, because on top of that normal board of, let's just say, Mirror Jade plus Grand Guignol plus Branded Lost, plus like a Quem in the end phase with a Titanclad in the graveyard, you know, having the option to go either into Stapelia, because that's another option, or Borreload Furious, or you could even go into the Albion at that point. But I think overall, if you're using Branded White, you want to save this for the Branded and red. You're going to send the end phase hopefully off a Branded or Albion the Branded Dragon. But if you don't have this card in rotation in the graveyard, obviously you could use this to just make your Sanctifier on top of your normal board. Obviously you're more susceptible to Droplet, but I think this ends up fixing a lot more hands sometimes because of that, because you could obviously just use things like Shrouded Dragon to make Sanctifier, which could make your hands a bit better, because a lot of the times you can't always have 1 to 2 brand or Albazes in the graveyard, like normal Albazes. So those are typically the options you'll make. Obviously, you can make things like Rinbrum too. Branded in white could also be used to make Albalinatus to fuse back everything, which is kind of cool, by making like Lubellion, which is always a fun play. If you need to recycle all your resources, you got like Brand White, make Lubellion effect, make a Albalinatus, and then like just spin back all your dragons in your graveyard or your banish, which is very good. So you can just always constantly keep up your resource game. I think that overall you just have so many broken options. Like you aren't gonna, obviously Guardian Chimera isn't that good in that option in that respect, but I do want to say you have 2 other options which really do come up. I think these are probably going to be your most relevant ones, and that is Masquerade and Light and Darkness Dragon. Masquerade just being a fantastic option currently for time cards, or for time purposes, with most games going to time, people running Spooky Dogwood. I think it's very imperative to have a Masquerade in the side deck at the moment, or even in the main deck. So this being a this is a Fiend, but obviously you could do it with a light or dark monster. So just do it, fulfill the Albaz requirement for the light or dark monster, and you're off to the races with this on top of your normal board, which is pretty hard to play through if you already have like several interruptions with Mercurier, double to triple Mirror Jade on top of Branded in red, that like, and you're not playing through a Masquerade too, you're gonna have to burn yourself to death. So I think you have also the best option, I think, is Light and Darkness Dragon Lord, which is a new card out of Infinite Forbidden, which we've covered a lot. It's a level 9 dragon, so we can summon it off of this, which is something that we cannot summon off of you know, the Go Albion and obviously Lubellion, because these 2 guys summon level 8 or lower fusion monsters. This is a level 9, so a lot of people have, I've seen a lot of people cheat with using these to summon this. Do not do that. So I would say that you know, Light and Darkness Dragon Lord being an option that you can literally just make for free off of this if you have an Albion the Shroud Dragon plus a Lubellion in the, or a Bestial Lubellion, which is very much something that you get into the graveyard a lot of the time. Less so often, you'll have Lubellion the Searing Dragon in the graveyard to fulfill the level 8 or the level 8 dragon, light dragon, because this requires a level 8 dark dragon and a level 8 light dragon in order to be fused into, which is kind of specific, but obviously you have Albion the Shroud Dragon plus Lubellion, or you have Albion the Branded Dragon plus Bestial Lubellion, or Lubellion the Searing Dragon plus Bestial Lubellion. Less important, but this comes up in certain shifter combo lines. You can also go into it with Borreload Furious Dragon, because that is a dark dragon, because a lot of the time under shifter you'll be left with Borreload plus Lubellion on the field. So if you just have a Cartesia, Blazing Cartesia, which is obviously a fusion, quick play fusion on your main phase or your opponent's main phase, which allows you to fuse into a level 8 or higher fusion monster. So you can't go into Mud Dragon or Guru with this, but you can go into Light and Darkness Dragon Lord with it, with like your Lubellion and you know, Borreload Furious Dragon after you've popped a card, and then you go into like 3 negates. This thing provides 3 hard Omni negates. Obviously it's mandatory, but it lets you chain block your Branded Fusion because of that effect. After you've used your 3 effects, like Light and Darkness Dragon Lord is a fantastic card to go into after you've used all your effects, because then you won't have to chain block your own effects. Use up your Mercurier, use up your double Mirror Jade, and then go into the Light and Darkness Dragon. You don't want to, you know, this is why this card could be used for Light and Darkness Dragon, that's too, but a lot of the time you want to make this on your opponent's turn after you've already exhausted everything. But for that reason, you could run this in a grind game and establish Light and Darkness Dragon Lord out of nowhere and completely swing the momentum of the game towards you, because that's 3 Omni negates plus the fact it floats itself, so you could float yourself back into Mirror Jade or Borreload Furious Dragon. It's very good. Overall, I hope I've convinced you to run Brand White. I think Brand White increases the ceiling of our deck way more than we had previously thought. And I know, like, this is a card that a lot of people ran back in the day, but I have not been seeing this in a lot of decks. But I think overall it's just such a good combo piece that with our deck being able to play through 3 to 4 hand traps at the moment with Gimmick Puppet, I think that you know, on our best hands, I think this card is going to be very live, and because of that, it's going to be very good for that reason. And the 3-4 hand traps, this will obviously just be able to play through it. It helps play through hand traps in that respect. It also recycles itself if you use it, if you discard for cost off of an Albaz effect, which is interesting, but I don't think it's that relevant. I never give it back that way, but I think it's much more relevant as being a really good grind game tool to be able to top deck in a grind game and need an out to establish a board piece that your opponent can't out. Also, it's just great to up the ceiling of your current boards. I think on top of like having the Sanctifier Guignol board on top of a Borload Furious, or even a Lad, or, you know, a Rinbrum, a Sanctifier, a Stapelia is very broken. It's very underrated as well. So I think that, you know, go for higher ceiling boards. A lot of the time we're gonna get hand trapped a lot. We're gonna get a lot of board breakers. I think it's a lot better to have a higher ceiling with our board. So overall, you guys try out Branded in White. Let me know how you guys like it. I highly recommend it. Check out my last deck profile if you want to see, you know, my full extra deck. Also, I have combo guides for the Light and Darkness Dragon down in the description, so you can see more combo guides I was talking about, with the Cartesia for Undershifter, or other lines with like Branded Banishment if you want to see how this guy could be summoned a lot more besides just Branded in White. That being said, please leave a like down below. If this video gets 100 likes, we will make more discussion videos like this. The next discussion video we can just do actually entirely probably on like Branded Banishment or something like that. So let me know down below, guys, or Light and Darkness Dragon Lord rather. So guys, let me know down below what you guys thought of this video, and we'll be seeing you guys later. MegaGamesGX signing out.